Wildfires continue to scorch communities across California as the state grapples with its worst and longest heat wave in years. 2 people were killed Tuesday in a blaze southeast of Los Angeles. Meanwhile, the state's electricity demand hit a record as prices reach a 2-year high. It narrowly avoided power outages yesterday, but an alert remains in effect in the state, with temperatures expected to stay well above 100 degrees in parts of California. For more on the impact this is likely to have on businesses, let's bring in the mayor of San Jose, Sam Liccardo. Mayor, it's great to have you on. I feel like this is becoming an annual conversation that we have when we talk about the strain on the power grid. I was looking at temperatures yesterday. San Jose hit an all-time high at 109 degrees. What's the situation specifically with the power supply where you are?
Well, thanks, Akiko. Good to be with you. There's no question that we really hit the limit. And with a consumption of 50,000, actually 52,000 megawatts yesterday, that was really stretching the capacity of the grid here in California to its furthest extent. And we really only averted widespread blackouts because of efforts of consumers to reduce their use. We were at a stage 3 emergency. A lot of warnings went out. And a lot of businesses and offices here at City Hall and elsewhere went offline in the afternoon, turning off air conditioning and so forth to try to reduce the strain on the grid.
There's a flex alert that still remains in effect. Obviously, yesterday was sort of seen as the peak. What has this meant for businesses that are operating there? I know the alert doesn't go in effect until 4 o'clock, but how have they had to scale back some of their activity?
Well, the impact is really on small businesses. As you can imagine, restaurants that are uncertain about whether or not refrigeration will be consistent, may have to throw out food. Those kinds of decisions really impact small businesses. The larger businesses, certainly the data centers, the manufacturing, tech manufacturing that may be very sensitive to power interruption. Those are companies that have invested typically in backup generators or fuel cells, Bloom Energy or other companies that enable them to be more resilient to these blackouts. So for the most part, I don't think it has a direct impact on many of our larger industries here in Silicon Valley, but it certainly has a longer term impact in terms of the competitiveness of our region and our state, because this is becoming really an implicit cost of doing business in California, having to invest private sector resources in additional backup power generation.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think the expectation is this is kind of the new reality. We've known California to have wildfires year after year, but they are getting more intense. The heat is getting more intense. And yet the power grid issue is not going away. So as the mayor of one of the largest cities there, how are you thinking about planning for the future until renewables catches up to the demand that's expected during these hottest summer months?
Well, the good news is we are rapidly deploying more renewables, but the challenge is really around the peak use periods, and that's a question more than anything of battery storage. About 3,300 megawatts battery storage have been brought online in the last couple of years. That has provided considerable relief and probably saved us in this case. And so we're really going to need to continue to accelerate deployment of that battery storage statewide. We've got some local companies here, good news, that are working hard on technologies to make that cheaper and more capable. What we really do struggle with, though, as we look at the grid, isn't just the total capacity. It's the fact that there are still individual breakdowns because of lack of capital replacement from PG&E or maintenance. We had transformers go down yesterday. It left more than 10,000 customers without power yesterday. So this grid is the most complex, most important, largest machine on the planet. Here in North America, we've got to do more to invest in it, to make sure it is ready for what's coming, because climate change is here.
It's not just about climate change, right? I mean, the reality is that in terms of the strain on the power grid, it's about to get even more. It's about to get even more strain because the state has now mandated essentially that all new cars will be EVs. We've talked about this for some time in terms of the strain the charging is going to cost on the grid. You mentioned battery deployment. I mean, can that technology keep up with the kind of demand you're expected to see in the next 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. It can. And I think this is a great challenge for Silicon Valley. And I think we're going to rise to that challenge. Deploying 3,300 megawatts in only a couple years is really significant, and I think we're going to see that accelerate. And in many ways, electric vehicles can be part of the solution. We're experimenting now, for example, with electric buses and using them essentially as mobile storage devices that can help support our grid when they're offline in times of peak power use, for example, in the early evenings. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, here for innovation to solve this problem.
Sam Liccardo, the mayor of San Jose, always good to have you on the show. Appreciate your time today.